We are live training.
We're live?
Yes.
Ma'am. All right, I'm going to call to order the September 10th, 2020 Northern Virginia Transportation Authority business meeting. I'm going to do a roll call to find out who is with us. Vice Mayor Parrish.
Here.
Chairman McKay, I believe you're not, he's not here, he's running a little late. I think we got an email that he's running late. Chair Wheeler.
Here.
Board Member Crystal.
Here.
Mayor Wilson.
Here.
Councilman Snyder.
I'm sorry.
Councilmember Snyder.
Here. Thank you.
Yeah. Mayor Rochelle.
Here.
Mayor Meyer.
Here.
I know Senator Boysko is on the line.
Here.
Delegate Watts.
Here.
Delegate Rome.
Here.
Ms. Hines.
Here.
Mr. Nope.
Here.
Is he not here? Mr. Kolb, are you with us, Mr. Kolb? Mr. Kolb. Going once, going twice. Not yet. Okay. Mayor Wood.
I'm present.
I see him. Ms. Curvo. See you.
Yes, I'm here.
And Ms. Mitchell.
I'm here.
All right, wonderful. So I'm told I don't need to read the entire resolution that explains the governor's order, state of emergency. I could just summarize that we are having an electronic meeting pursuant to the governor's order for the electronic meeting during COVID-19 pandemic. The meetings that we conduct we have to assure that everything we're doing here is necessary for the continued operation of MVTA. Authority members at any time, if we want to have a vote to resume our meetings in person, again, that is a vote of the authority that can happen. But for now, we'll continue these meetings under the governor's order, unless somebody, the executive order number 53, unless somebody believes we shouldn't. Anything else I need to say?
Yeah, Fairfax County is not here. Sorry, joined.
I was just going to go to the presentation anyway. Jeff, are you in? Are you in, Jeff? McKay?
Yeah.
Zoom. All right.
Chair Ryan,
Yes.
I'd like to move resolution 20-04, finding the need to conduct the meeting electronically.
Thank you. It's been moved by Mr. Parrish to conduct the meeting electronically. Is there a second?
Second, this is Katie Crystal.
Second from Board Member Crystal. Is there any discussion on that? Speak up now. And I will say all in favor. If you are not in favor, if you would just let it be known that you're not in favor. Otherwise, I will assume you're in favor of the motion. Anyone not in favor of this motion? All right, then the motion will pass unanimously. Thank you. For the minutes of the meeting from July 9th, did everyone have a chance to read the meeting minutes? Any additions or deletions to the minutes? Any issues, any thoughts? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Rischel.
McKay, second.
Seconded by Mr. McKay. Hey, Jeff.
Hello.
Anybody not in favor of approving the minutes? Okay, the minutes are approved. We have, before the consent agenda, we have a presentation that would be given today by our transportation planner. Is he on the line?
He is, Chair Randall, but before he begins, I just want to say a few words. Can you hear me? Okay. We are finally at a point where we are able to share with the authority the project.
Everyone, mute yourself if you want.
Okay. We are ready tonight to share with the authority the Project Management and Monitoring System Dashboard. The authority approved this item as part of the FY 19 and 20 budgets. And then in FY 21, you augmented to give us additional funding for the dashboard. What this enabled us to do, and we first brought it online, was a part of the 6-year program update that you adopted in July. We were able to have an electronic application system, which your staff thank you for, our staffs were thankful for, because it helps streamline the system. So now we want to show you the dashboard and how this application and system is really more public facing. So anyone can log on to our website and get an idea of the status of the projects. Shri, turning it over to you.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, authority members, Chair Randall. As Monica mentioned, we started this process about 2 years back when we started working on the application portal. And we already used it for the recently adopted 6-year program when your jurisdictional staff, agency staff could log into that system and fill in all the applications online. And we, the NVTA staff, could go through that and review and do all the things through that portal. And as a second stage of that, we brought in all the SPA management and project updates into that system too. So everything that has been done by paper or emails, everything is now moved onto this system. It removes a lot of manual errors and delays and things like that. There are various checks and balances in the system that make sure that these things are all captured correctly, and we don't have to spend a lot of time and effort in correcting all those mistakes that could have been there if it was manual. So that system now can take care of all the executed SPAs, all that appendices, updating the appendices periodically, reimbursement requests, all the reimbursement requests can now move into the system. And also the project updates, monthly status update that you see in the executive director's report every month, all that will now move into the system. What it enables us is to bring all these different information that we collect in one place and then do various massaging it and calculations and then projecting it out to a dashboard where public can see what is going on with the investment you have made. So this is, as the title of the dashboard says, this is a gateway to the Northern Virginia's investment in transportation. And surely you are investing wisely, and this gateway will allow the public to see the results that NVTA is delivering. Now, as you can see, I will now walk you through the various parts of this dashboard. As you can see the map, when you come to this page, you can see the whole distribution of all the projects across the Northern Virginia jurisdictions. Dev, I think you just zoomed out a little bit. Can you go back? Maybe you can just, that's fine. So it shows the distribution of projects. When you zoom into the middle of that area, you can see more. At this scale, you cannot see each of the projects separately, but if you zoom in to the middle, you will see more spread out where the projects are. Now, on the right side, there are the blue box shows 2 circles. The first one says how many projects we are moving, we are funded, and how much money is involved in those projects or NVTA funds involved in that project. You will note that we are showing 87 projects for 1.6 billion. If I'm sure Al Parrish is looking at that and saying that, but we have more money than that. That is correct. You have approved about 2.4 billion for funds, for projects through the fiscal year 2020-2025 6-year program. We are only capturing those projects with an executed SPA here. So some of the projects approved in 2018 to 23 6-year program and in 2020, 2025 6-year program are not captured in here. Primarily, unless we have that SPA, we cannot really go into the details of how much money is involved and when we are reimbursing, how much we are reimbursing. None of those details can be captured to really start spending money. So this system is actually capturing those with the SPA executed. Some of them are completed, some of them are ongoing. And the donut chart right underneath shows the different funding sources. So you can see that about 1/3 of the total project cost is coming from NVTA. Another one, about 1/3 is coming from all other sources together. Federal, state, local, private contribution, everything together is about 1/3. And still, there is another 1/3 more we need to find to complete these projects. So it shows how much of these projects are moved by NVTA funds and other funds, and still it shows that the region needs more funds to complete its required projects. Now, if you go down this page, that brief description in the top actually tells what I told you now about executed SPA versus approved projects. That gives a brief description. And it gives a link to our website where all the approved projects are listed and given, the details are given. Now, these three charts, the first one on the left, project status, as I said, some of them are completed, about 30 of them. Rest of them are underway. So they are at various stages of implementation. The central chart, I'm really interested in this one. This shows the true multimodal nature of NVTA's investments. It's not, no one color is dominating. We have a lot of colors here, which tells me that we have funding in all types of projects: road, bus, rail, bike, pedestrian, transportation technology, park and ride, everything is there. So this really shows that your investment is not only geographically distributed in Northern Virginia, but mode-wise also, all kinds of modes are funded by NVTA. And the right chart shows, the rightmost one shows where we are with the spending. We allocated all this funding and how much of it is spent by now. Obviously, there is a lot more to be spent, but as you know, many of these projects takes time, 5 to 10 years to complete. So I think that the blue will be always smaller than the maroon. But yes, at some point we want to see the blue moving, covering more space than this. Now going back to the top of the page, you see at the top there are 4 filters: project sponsor, location, corridor segment, and transportation mode. So everything in this page is now showing all the projects and all the funding. But if you want to, if a public citizen wants to go and find out which projects are sponsored by a particular jurisdiction or agency, they can click on that first project sponsor filter, and it will, and then you can check. Can you click on that, please? Yeah. So you can check on a particular, any particular jurisdiction or agency, and then the whole page will change based on that filter. Similarly, project location, if I want to know what projects are there physically located in my jurisdiction, I can do that. The difference between the two is that when you click location, it will pick the regional projects, some of the transit projects like Vermont projects and VRE projects. They also will be captured if that is, those projects are located in my specific jurisdiction. Now going to the corridor segments, this is something to do with transportation, transaction. Our long range plan looks at the whole Northern Virginia into different corridors and see how each corridor is performing. So if you are interested to know what's going on in I-95 corridor or I-66 corridor, Route 7 corridor, you can check those boxes specifically and find out what's going on in those corridors or corridor segments. And the last one is transportation mode. We get a lot of query from public and news media about this, how much projects you are funding, how many rail projects are you funding or bus projects you are funding and things like that. This is a place to do that kind of sorting. There, if you can click on rail. So once you click rail, you can see the map has changed, the number of projects, immediate funding, and the donut chart on the right side, everything has changed now. That's based on that particular filter. And if you go down, you will see a similar change in these charts too. Transportation mode is all blue. That's basically because we picked up rail only. So only one mode is shown here. Going back to the top, in the map, there, if you can click on that number 2, maybe on the map. Yeah. So that kind of zooms into those projects. Actually, no, if you can pan the map a lot to the top, I want to see a project on the top of the page. Yeah, to the top left corner. That project, if you can click on that. So once you click on that thing, it shows that what project it is. It's the Innovation Station, Metro Station project in Fairfax County. And if you click on more details, it takes you to this project specific page. On the right side, you will see there is a brief description about what this project is all about and the different project cost details, total project cost, how much is NVTA putting into that project, and the primary and secondary transportation modes that this project is supporting. On the left, the top part of it shows more details about who is a sponsoring entity, where it is located, what's the current status, what activity is ongoing now, and when do you expect this project to be completed. The bottom part shows a little bit more detail. Yes. Sorry. So
nothing, Treat. There were times you're going in and out a little bit, and you had just left for a while that time. So I was just, but go on.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. So yeah, the top part shows the details about various details about the project. Bottom chart kind of gives you more details on the funding. In this case, NVTA is funding more than 3/4 of that whole project. Rest of the money is coming from other sources. If there was a gap, that would have shown here, but this project is fully funded. These details are available for each and every project that we are showing. So if you can go back to the dashboard. Thank you. And just, yeah, click all that. So this goes back to the entire project details. This is what I wanted to show you and get your feedback or any questions. And that's all I have to tell you. So if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer those questions at this point.
Okay, authority members, I'm going to go down the line and call you all one by one if you have questions. So, because I think that would be the easier way for me to do it. Mayor Parrish, do you have any questions?
Let me see if I can unmute myself. Just a couple of thoughts. It's helpful for not only us, but particularly our citizens who may be very, very interested in various transportation projects and the MVTA. So I'm hopeful it'll be helpful for them as well.
Chair Wheeler.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to temporarily unmute. I think it's great. I love being able to pass along this information, and I look forward to passing this out and using it myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Crystal?
No comments, but thank you for the presentation and the excellent work.
Mayor Wilson?
No comment, but it's a great display of the information. Thank you.
Councilman Snyder? Councilman Snyder, you there?
Yeah, thanks for great work on this. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Rochelle?
No comments or questions, but this is a great dashboard. Thank you very much for setting this up.
Mayor Meyer?
I think that the project strengthens our transparency as an authority, and I particularly like the part that shows which projects have been completed, which projects are being are underway, and you can track the expenditures, which has been of keen interest to a number of members of the General Assembly. So I think this is a very good way to tell our story. Excellent work.
Senator Boyce, go. Oh, Senator Boyce goes on the phone and she can't see it, so she's driving. Okay, Delegate Watts?
Excellent. I love it. It's wonderful. So I have a request and a hope. There have been some good instruments over the years in VDOT, and I look at them sometimes and they're 2-3 years old. So I can only hope that this will be regularly updated by the projects, because if you're interested in a project, updating it once a year or once every 6 months when you do everything else is less than the transparency that's already been referred to. So while I know it takes staff work, it would be very important. And then the other request I have, maybe I missed it, but I would be very interested in what non-MDTA funding is, which level of government, where that other sources of funding come from. So if that can be added, that would be very helpful, particularly for General Assembly purposes.
That's interesting. Yeah, thank you. Delegate Rome.
Chair Randall, if I may.
Yes, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
The first part, the update, this is really live update happens because basically there are three things that happens on a regular basis. One is the project keep progressing and there are changes happening, and we get that information on a monthly basis from jurisdiction and agency staff, and we push that into the system. So that happens every month. The project schedule and things like that, once in a while, the jurisdictions tell us that due to various reasons, the project schedule has changed. And that is from time to time when they come to us, we make that changes, and that there is no particular schedule as such, but whenever that happens, we do it right away. And the third thing is a reimbursement request. As and when we process, we receive and we process a reimbursement request, within a day that will be updated in the system. So it's not once a year or twice a year. It's on a day-to-day basis. It will be updated.
Again, I really appreciate your professional commitment to what is an excellent tool.
Yeah, wow.
And the request about adding, showing all the other resources, sure, we will look into that and see if we can do that within the resources we have.
Thank you so much. Delegate Rome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions, but I'll be happy to share this on my rather robust social media accounts. These just playing around with it right now, it's really great. It's wildly informative, and I think people are really going to like interacting with this. So to whoever did the interface design and everything, like very, very nicely done on this. This is great.
Thank you, Ms. Hines.
Kudos, as everyone has said. My only question is this embedded on the homepage of the MBTA website? Is that where I go to get it? I'm using my device for the meeting, so I can't play with it.
You're right, Ms. Hines. We already gave a link on our main website. There is a separate tab also. There are multiple places in the web page where we think public will be looking for it. We have included all those links there.
Great, thank you.
Mayor Wood.
Did you hear anything I just said?
No, did not.
Now, thank you to everybody who put this together and took the time to really lead it. And, you know, I've been a part of web projects, and this is very tedious. And so thank you for the attention to detail. and how we can zoom in and out. I'm playing around with it, so thank you. I will use it.
Ms. Curville.
Really well done. Great information to have. We do have a dashboard, and then we also have projects websites. So I would like to touch base with Delegate Watts later to find out something she suggested might be a little bit old. So we want to look into that. But thank you. It looks really good.
Ms. Mitchell?
No questions. Good job.
Thank you. And I would just ask if it's possible to link this off of all the county and cities sites, because usually if someone's looking for a project, they probably won't go to the MBTA page first. They'll probably go to their county page or their city page or their town page first, because that's just what they know. So if they're looking for a project in their area, they'll go there. So if we can send this to all the participating jurisdictions and have it linked off of our sites, it would really, I think, drive up traffic and help people know that the project is available, as well as if anyone wants to share them on their robust or non-robust social media sites, that'd be good. But to link it off of all the jurisdictional sites, I think would be really very helpful also.
Sharandal, yes, we are already working with the jurisdiction staff. We will be working with the PAOs and the RJAC members to make sure that these links are sent to them and make sure that it is publicized and it is included in county and city and other jurisdictional websites and other places. And our communication manager just texted me saying that, yes, we are doing that, we are doing that.
Okay, very good. Jeff, did you have any questions, Chairman McKay?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say, I support what Delegate Watts was saying about the sources of revenue. I think if we can somehow capture that here in an easy way, that would make sense. You know, we obviously see that in the applications very clearly, but in terms of transparency, I think it's not just helpful to the General Assembly members, but helpful to the public to also see, what level investments coming from what, various government sources. And so I just want to support that notion. I'm not saying exactly how to do that, but I think if we can get there, I think that would help this. So, but well done. Thank you.
Yeah, and we got a note from Senator Voisko that said, well done, and she appreciates the staff work. So thank you, Senator Voisko. All right, we're going to go on. I'm going to read the consent agenda. And then we will we have one deletion from the agenda tonight, and I will ask Ms. Chair Wheeler to make that when we get there. Let's do the consent agenda first. Item number 6 is on the consent agenda, approval of standard project agreement for Fairfax County Regional Funding 2018-016-3 Fairfax County Parkway widening Ox Road to Lee Highway. Includes a grade separated interchange at the intersection of Pope's Head Road. Item 7, approval of standard project agreement for Fairfax County Regional Funding 2018-010-3 Route 28 widening, Route 29 to Prince William County line. Item 8, approval of standard project agreement for the Virginia Railway Express Regional Funding 2018-058-2 Crystal City Station Improvements. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. McKay?
Motion's been made by Chairman McKay. Second?
Second, Crystal.
Seconded by Member Crystal. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Just chime in. All right, once again, I'm going to ask, is anyone opposed? Otherwise, I will assume that you are a yay, and so anyone opposed? Wonderful. Okay, before we get into the action items, I'm going to, we have a deletion from the agenda tonight. It is item number 12, approval of the D appropriation for Prince William County Route 28 project. I'm going to ask Ms. Chair Wheeler if she'd like to make a motion to delete this item.
Yes, thank you, Chair Randall. I would like to make a motion to delete item number 12, the approval of de-appropriation for Prince William County.
Is there a second?
Second from Rishel.
And there's been second by Mayor Risho. Is there a discussion on the motion for de-appropriation for the Route 28 project in Prince William County? Chair Wheeler.
Yes, thank you, Chair Randall. Just for people who haven't been following, on September 8th, the Board of County Supervisors in Prince William County took action to reconsider several actions related to the Route 28 project. They reconsidered a vote from August 4th to endorse alternative 4, which was the widening, and we reconsidered it and voted to deny the endorsement of alternative 4. We also reconsidered a vote from August 4th to deny alternative 2B, the Route 28 bypass, and we reconsidered and voted to approve the endorsement of alternative 2B, the Route 28 bypass, as an alternative for the Route 28 corridor project. The full resolution also includes authorization to execute a standard project agreement for the Route 28 project and to budget and appropriate $89 million. The signed resolution and the executed SPA has been passed on to the NVTA. Prince William County plans to move forward with requesting the NVTA to appropriate the $89 million in programmed 2018-23 funds in fiscal year 2021 as initially scheduled. I don't know if there are any questions or further discussions.
So I will go to the seconder of the motion first. I will go to the seconder of the motion first. Ms. Risho, do you have any discussion on the motion?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to thank the Prince William County Board of Supervisors for revisiting the Route 28 vote. Alternative 2B was the most cost-effective, involved less takes. It has already been through the rating process and would not cause a 1.5 to 3 year delay. So the folks in all 3 localities will certainly benefit from this work. We were all very concerned about it. Even the folks who live out in Fauquier County who drive in on 28 will also benefit from this. So I want to thank Chair Wheeler and the other supervisors who revisited the vote. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. I'm going to go to the people who are connected to Prince William County to see if they have remarks, and then if anyone else does, they can just chime in. Mayor Parrish, do you have any comments on the motion?
I do. Obviously, being surrounded by Prince William County, you could call it connected to them. But I'd like to point out something that really hasn't been talked about, and I've done a lot of talking along with others that are here on the NBT and elsewhere about the actions that were taken up by the board. And I'm thoughtful of those actions and I appreciate those actions, but take a look at the regional nature of the NVTA. We all know it's a regional body and we serve on it from our individual jurisdictions, so we're parochial in that aspect. But when we serve the NVTA as authority members, we're really functioning for the authority. And I want to point out a connection between the action that Chair Wheeler and seconded by Mayor Rochelle and the consent agenda that we just passed. Consent agenda that we just passed had a Fairfax project on it that related directly to Route 28 and funding for Route 28 and Route 28's widening. So north of the bridge. So I'm mindful it's can't even think of the word, so you all might have to help me. I'm mindful of the importance of the regional nature of the NVTA as expressed in what we're accomplishing and what the board accomplished with some difficult moments. And I'm thankful for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Delegate Rome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I have a few things I want to mention with this. The first one, I guess this might be a question for Chairman McKay. This is a constituent service request. I had to present this question for my Manassas constituent, Mark Scheifler. He asked, why was 2B allowed to be evaluated by the MBTA without a comprehensive plan amendment by Fairfax County?
Ask the question through the chair to Chairman
so sorry,
McKay one more time, because you're breaking up a little bit and I don't think you probably heard it. So can you start over?
Sure. Madam Chair, can you hear me okay now?
I can hear you better now, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Chair. So Madam Chair, I would ask Chairman McKay for Fairfax if he would be willing to answer a question. A constituent service question that I had from Manassas, where one of my constituents, Mark Scheifler, asked, why was alternative 2B allowed to be evaluated by the NVTA without a comprehensive plan amendment by Fairfax County, but it would have been required for alternative 4?
So I'm not sure that's I'm not sure that's a question for Chairman McKay, but through the chair, I'll let Chairman McKay take a stab at it, and then I'll go to the NVTA staff. Mr.
No,
McKay?
I actually think we should go to the NVTA staff. I mean, this occurred before I was on NVTA.
Yep.
I do know that there's some history here, so why don't I let the staff start, and I certainly can add to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Rum, can you restate the question? I was here 4 years ago, and I'm a little confused by the question.
CPA to allow item 2B, which is the bypass coming through that way.
Why didn't they?
Yeah.
Okay. Ms.
Okay,
Backman's going to answer the question.
Okay, Madam Chair, would you like me to restate the question?
Yep, we got it, and Ms. Backman's going to answer the question. Thank you, though.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Wanted to make sure there were no feedback. Thank you for the question, Delegate Rome. And Keith, please feel free to join in if I'm going too far off base. Even though it is the bypass and Fairfax County is doing their portion, it's primarily located in Prince William County. Now, it does directly impact the city of Manassas and, of course, Manassas Park, but there is the direct, because of the physical location of Prince William County and the bypass being in Prince William County. Now, I will say comp plan amendments are sent and are required to be sent to neighboring localities for their review. They do get a chance to review and opine on comp plan amendments. However, because the project is physically located in Prince William County, they are the governing body of, and they have the ultimate responsibility of saying yes or no to the project. When we put it in transaction, that's when the authority and Fairfax County, of course, and former Chairman Bulliver was a part of that. That's when we had our opportunity to comment on the particular project. And then we had a second opportunity when we were evaluating it as part of the FY 2018 to 2023 6-year program.
Delegate Rome, did that help?
Yeah, that was a great start to that. I don't know if anyone had anything they want to add before, Madam Chair, if it's okay with you if I present my second question.
Sure, absolutely.
Great. Okay, so then I guess the second part on this here is that my understanding, and Madam Chair, please correct me if I'm wrong, or if Ms. Bachman wants to correct me, like by all means, please. After the Board of County Supervisors made their initial vote regarding Godwin Drive Extended, where they voted to endorse the widening instead, my understanding for the way that the process would have had to work out, basically, is that prior to this meeting on September 8th, or I guess on the September 8th Board of County Supervisors meeting, they would have had to initiate a comprehensive plan amendment. We then would have deallocated the Godwin Drive Extended money only for FY21, while it's still being available by FY23, as long as the county had completed its work by the first quarter of next year, in which case they would have to reapply during the 2022 session more. So their application would have had to come in 2021. And with that in mind, it's not that 80.
Let me just pause you, because that's actually not correct. So I don't want you to continue the question on a premise that's not accurate. So Ms. Bachman, do you want to?
So Delegate Ron, what happened was when the board endorsed the widening, which we did not model and we did not fund, that 89 million, we have a total of 95 million on the project. We have 2.5 million that was allocated for a feasibility study, 3.5 million for the environmental impact statement, and then 89 million for construction. So we model, under construction, we modeled the bypass. When the Prince William Board took action to endorse the widening and not the bypass, that's a change of scope for us. So the authority had three decisions that the authority could make. One of three, I should say. The authority could choose to keep all of the money on the project, all of the 89, some of it, or cancel the project. Now, what we had stated, because we knew we had the agenda item out for the de-appropriation, the de-appropriation was on the agenda because according to policy 29, you must have an executed standard project agreement within 3 months of project funding appropriation. So Prince William received an appropriation for the 89 million at the May authority meeting. So there were one or two actions for them to have the funding de-appropriated or have the SPA on the agenda for execution. Given that the widening was something we did not model, we couldn't hold that money for the widening. Now, we say they had up until fiscal year 2023. That was to get the funding appropriated for the bypass because that was funded as part of the FY18 to 2023 program. That was not the same for the widening because we had never modeled the widening. So what it would require upon us, if Prince William wanted to proceed with the widening, they would, number one, have to amend their comprehensive plan because the widening was not in their comprehensive plan. Upon the adoption of the comprehensive plan amendment, then the authority would have to rerun the model. There were 60 projects that were evaluated as part of the FY18 to 2023 six-year program. So we would have to rerun the model against all of those projects. We would have to post the new congestion reduction relative to cost score, the new transaction rating. And one thing I noted when I spoke to the Prince William board, the widening at this time comes at a cost of $100 million more than the bypass. So there was some concerns in regards to what that meant for the cost and the project readiness aspect, because again, when you have to go through a comprehensive plan amendment and things of that nature, you are delaying the physical implementation of the project. And the project readiness is one of those qualitative factors that we consider. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Bachman. Madam Chair. So, Madam Chair, I guess almost to start wrapping up my point here are some questions I had. My understanding was basically that if the widening had been pursued as Ms. Bachman was just describing here, that if Prince William County had initiated the comprehensive plan amendment, they had done that. The question I'm basically trying to get at is by FY23, given that the NVTA has not modeled this yet, and at the same time the NVTA has not scored the project yet, just as Ms. Bachman was talking about, assuming that work were to be completed in 2021, that when we are going through the FY22 process of basically determining the 2-year budget, basically the 2-year funding program, would the board have had the ability to take $89 million that would have been deallocated from Godwin Drive Extended, and upon evaluation of the modeling and the score, be able to apply that to the widening if it were to be the will of the board in the first place?
So, and Ms. Bachman, tell me if I get this wrong. It would depend on how the widening scored. And what we know is that the widening was offering less lanes, and so the congestion relief relative to cost score would have been lower, and the widening was going to cost $100 million more, which means the project readiness score would have been lower. So it's very unlikely that they would have scored high enough to get the $89 million. We believe it probably would have been significantly lower. In addition, we will start a new call for projects in June. And so when we get ready to do a call for projects, we have to know how much money we're working with. And so what I told their board was that I, as chair of the NTA, was not going to leave this money in a deallocated position for months and months and months while they did all this, because what they said is that it would probably take, quote, many months to figure it out. And I wasn't going to leave the money deallocated for months and months because we have to know what kind of money we're working with. I told them that I wouldn't bring it up in October meeting, but by the November meeting, I would want to know what they wanted to do one way or the other. I was very clear with the Prince William County Board that whatever they chose to do was up to them. It was simply up to them. I have no skin in that game at all, except for, as Mr. Parrish said, these are regional projects. But they were under the impression that the money would be automatically moved from one project to another project. And I wanted to clear up that miscommunication. And so when they understood that it had to be scoped again and we didn't know it was going to come in, how it was going to come in, then they made decisions based on that new knowledge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Madam Chair, if I can just briefly speak to basically speak to the motion that's going to begin before us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Madam Chair, as you were just saying, basically in your role as MBTA Chair, upon a request of the board, you came to speak in front of the board to answer questions, present information. And I've taken a similar, basically, point of view here in terms of what is my relationship as a state delegate who happens to be a member of the MBTA to the Board of County Supervisors in terms of not dictating to them how to do their job. And that I only speak in front of the board or any elected body upon invitation of the board, which is why, I didn't go up in front of on this or even other issues that you would naturally assume I would be present at. However, when someone like Chair Wheeler, for example, or members from Supervisor Bodie to Supervisor Franklin, Supervisor Canlin, to you name it, when people have called me to ask me specific questions about this and to take my, my advice on this, I've been absolutely happy to take as much time as anyone's willing to give me on this. And Chair Wheeler, I thank you for, we took like an hour and a half together to talk over this issue. And basically, so I could address my concerns to Chair Wheeler, and she could basically do the job that she saw that she needed to do. And at the same time, take it, understand that we have a line of delineation between state government representatives and local government representatives when it comes to dealing with their project. As this is now coming before the MBTA in our capacity in this project, I noticed after the widening vote, basically to, opt in favor of the widening instead of this, the response that I was receiving from my constituents who live in the Flat Branch area, in particular along Allegheny, Amherst, and Boundary, was a lot of, just to be honest, being a lot of relief. They were calling me on my cell phone. They were sending me emails basically saying like, okay, we should be all right. And I was not hearing similar concerns along the Route 28 corridor itself from business owners. For example, I went into the same night that the vote came in, I actually went to Yorkshire Restaurant where I talked to Ellis, who's the owner there, who's also a constituent. And, we just basically talked it out and he understood what was going on and he actually, liked the idea. So I guess in its totality, I think a lot of my constituents would be more comfortable with the widening, even though it would, number one, score less, number two, it would cost more, and number three, you would have 2 lanes instead of 4. However, that said, that is with the caveat of, is there an alternative to doing that project or to either of these? And likewise, one of my constituents, as I was mentioning before, Mr. Scheifler, he put together a plan that would have basically an alternative extension of Wells Street to run parallel to Route 28 itself, where basically the idea would be to redevelop the middle corridor, kind of like you would do if you had like a Yorkshire small area plan that was in accordance to that. That would take fewer properties and you would turn existing Route 28 into a northbound lane or to a northbound mode of transportation. You would take Wells Street and you turn that to southbound, and you would have the option for adding mass transit to it. The Godwin Drive Extended project, while it does have a multimodal component of it, does not include a mass transit option of it. Now, I will say, though, that what we're going to vote on later regarding my smart scale application that Mayor Rischel and Manassas Park is kind enough to carry, that does have a multimodal aspect because it has a contiguous sidewalk that joins into Fairfax County over the bridge. So just with that in mind, I certainly want to be supportive of multimodal, while at the same time, I've heard from my constituents on this, and I also heard the need for us to make sure that we actually have an expansion of mass transit in the corridor as well. So thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to take the time. I appreciate it.
Sure. So I will respond, and I'll let Chair Wheeler respond. So you're correct. As I spoke before the board, I was very clear that I was speaking as, and by, well, one, by invitation, and two, as MBTA chair. I also was very clear that I did not have it would have been completely inappropriate for me to give them my opinion or my thoughts or any of that. I know this area very, very well because I worked in Prince William County for 20 years and drove right through there to go to the ADC every single day for 20 years. So I knew the area very well. My larger concern was that it is a new board. Out of 8 members, 6 are new, and MBTA is can be very complicated to understand all the processes in MBTA. And this was a new board that was working in the middle of a pandemic that had been on the dais for 3 months before they all went home and such. And so it was, I thought, upon invitation, it was important for me to let them know what the process was and then let them make the decision they wanted to make. And so that's what I was there for, to let them know what the NBTA process was. How they chose then and what they do next, that is completely up to their board. And I was very, very clear about that when I spoke to them. So I will ask Ms. Wheeler if she actually like to add anything else.
Well, we had a 2-hour discussion that night about Route 28 and some of the options. And I will tell you that after we chose the widening option, I was inundated with people who were aghast at that for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is that we've never scored it. It would score lower, and it was $100 million more expensive. What I felt was that we made a decision that night in a complete vacuum. We took a project, and I can speak to this. We took a project that had been studied and on the boards for 4 years and chose something that we had no additional information about, which I thought was poor governing, which is why I wanted reconsidered, especially when I found out the information that night that had been presented regarding the loss of $89 million was completely incorrect. And it was not easy to keep the $89 million. I have been walking up and down Route 28, and I spoke to a few businesses, and 2 of them said, 2 long-term ones that had been there said they'd have to shut down and finally move because they just couldn't take anymore because the road was getting wider and wider. Another one said that they didn't want a 6-lane highway in front of their business, and it really didn't feel like it was the best way to go. I understand the people who back up to Flat Branch were, some of them with their homes, with the home takings in that area, were upset. Some were more upset about the flooding. After since talking to staff, realizing that going forward with this project in a good sense will actually help to alleviate the flooding that's been existing in the Flat Branch area for 20 or 30 years. And this is actually a chance to mitigate some of the issues that we have along there with those people in Allegheny. And one of the last things I said to a woman I had a conversation with that day is, I want to help you with your flooding, but it's a lot easier if I have $300 million to address some of it, and so I understand some of their concerns, but I also know that some of them are unfounded, and they think that we're going to build sound walls that are going to channel water into their homes. And I know the Army Corps of Engineers is not going to let us do that. So I don't want to relitigate the whole bypass versus widening here, but I do feel that is the will of the board at this point, after more information, that they are firmly behind the bypass. And that's how we plan to proceed.
And Ms. Backman had one more comment.
And thank you, Chair Randall. And if I could add, and it seems like a lifetime ago, pre-COVID, at the time, Prince William County, they were actually having stakeholder meetings in regards to this project. And I know there was a lot of coordination with Fairfax County. Fairfax County was included in those stakeholder meetings, in addition to some of the Prince William board members, I think the Park Authority and other entities. So just to note, it wasn't something that the authority does in a vacuum. Additionally, in regards to funding, an applicant can submit an application to the authority for funding. And when that application is submitted, and once the 6-year program is adopted and we award funds for a particular project, it is very, very important that we adhere to that project, because we want to ensure that we're meeting the provisions of the law. when the scope is changed, and depending on the magnitude of that scope change, and for this one, it was a different project, it requires, per the law, a rerun of the model and posting of the scores at bare minimum. And then the authority would have to make a decision on the utility of the funding. Thank you, Chair Randall.
Absolutely. I'm going to go to Mayor Wood, who's the only other person who is kind of within the Prince William boundaries. And so I was going to call the Prince William people first. So Mayor Wood, did you have any comments?
You didn't hear me, did you? No, I just want to. I'm real grateful that the board and Chair Wheeler had the to go back and reconsider that and bring that back up. That's always a tough decisions, and to be able to look at this from a regional perspective and to get all of the pretext so that the context and there's no more misconceptions about this, I think was very great. And so I commend, my colleagues here in Prince William County for taking that bold step to go back and actually look at a decision and to reverse it, because this is, you got to look at transportation from a regional perspective, from this corridor to that corridor. So I think we're all in this, and I think that's why we all are part of this authority, because we're willing to be able to look at it from different lenses. So, that's my comments on that.
Thank you. I think I hit all the people who are in the Prince William County boundary lines. Would anybody else like to speak on this item before we call the vote? Ms. Richard, would like to speak?
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking from the perspective of the users of Route 28, I think it would have been of huge concern had the widening continued to be the choice because of the delay. We mustn't forget the delay would be anywhere from 1.5 years to 3 years. That would be very difficult for Route 28 users to accept. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I'll do it again. I will say all in favor. All opposed. If anyone's opposed to the motion of the appropriation for Prince William County Route 28 project, motion made by Chair Wheeler and seconded by Mayor Rischel. Is anyone opposed to this motion?
Madam Chair, yes, yes, I'm opposed on this, only on the grounds that I don't think we have examined the alternative widening, even though, I know this is going to obviously pass today and continue on, and we'll see how the process basically works out, going down the road here.
Okay, thank you. So that motion will pass 13-1 with Delegate Rome opposing the measure. Thank you. Next item is the appointment of Joanna Anderson to the Council of Councils. Ms. Backman.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Yes, who's talking? Hello, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. I was going to put a motion on the floor to move the authority approval of the appointment of our wonderful city attorney from the city of Alexandria, Joanna Anderson, to the NVTA Council of Councils.
McKay, second.
And I'd like to second that.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, Jeff. Okay, I'll give it to you, Jeff. I'll give it to you. Seconds by Mr. McKay. Mr. Wilson, would you like to discuss that motion?
Joanna's great. You should vote for her. She's Joanna is an excellent city attorney and has been very eager to join the Council of Councils and get the opportunity to work with her colleagues around the region on some of these important transportation issues. In addition to her service as a city attorney, previously serviced as the deputy city attorney and in the office for quite a while, as well as some private practice as well. We are happy to share her with the region, and I think you will find that she is an excellent attorney with a good mind for these things, and so we're excited to share her with the region. So thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this motion? Mr. McKay is the second of the motion. Like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will just say I'm happy to see this addition. As the authority knows, I'm a big supporter of the Council of Councils, and I think this addition makes that group even stronger, and look forward to them all serving the NVTA well.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on the motion? I would just simply say, well, before, Vice Mayor Parrish, do you have anything to say? My brother, Vice Chair Parrish, I'm sorry.
Not a thing that hadn't already been said.
Okay. I like to say, I think the Council of Councilors, they just do an amazing job, and let's just say for not much money.
Oh, we thought we got. There's a complete misunderstanding here.
So we may want to go tell her that.
Yeah, in that case, we thought this was a side gig for her. So,
You may want to go tell her that before you keep going. So please, well, I look forward to meeting her. Is anyone opposed to this motion? All right, that motion will pass unanimously. The next action item is the, I'm sorry, I've lost my page. Approval of transfer of Transform 60 outside the Beltway concessionaire funds request for Fairfax County. The whole agenda tonight is just Fairfax County getting money. The entire agenda, that's what the entire agenda is. Fairfax County pulling money in. Who'd like to speak to this item? Would you like to just make a motion? Have anything to say, Ms. Backman, before a motion is made? Do you have anyone wants to before Mr.
I'll just
McKay?
make a few words. Fairfax County is requesting a transfer of $510,746 in previously allocated concessionaire payment funds from the Route 29 widening project to Route 50 at Waples Mills. Both projects have come before the authority were approved previously, or recommended, I should say, for concessionaire funds previously. So this is just recommending that the Commonwealth Transportation Board conduct this transfer. As a reminder, on I guess this is going back a few years ago to 2017, that's when the authority actually was given the opportunity to make recommendations on the concessionaire payment funding, and this is consistent with the authority's initial recommendation.
Okay, Mr. McKay, would you like to make a motion, sir?
Thank you, Chair Randall. See, it's not really even new money. I'm happy to move the authority recommendation to transfer $510,746 in I-66 concession funds from the Route 29 widening Phase 1 to Route 50 at Waples Mill intersection improvement.
Motion's made. Is there a second? I will second it.
Second.
Otherwise, Mayor,
This is Ms. Crystal.
That was Ms. Crystal?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ms. Crystal. Mr. McKay, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you.
Okay. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion, especially the people who are in Fairfax County? So, Mayor Meyer, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you. I have no comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Snyder, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
And I think that's it. Anybody else like to speak to the motion? All right. Is anyone, questions anyone opposed to this motion? This motion will pass unanimously. Thank you. And then the last action item is, I believe this is what Delegate Rome was talking about, the adoption of Resolution 2005 Smart Scale Project Application Endorsements. Ms. Backman, would you like to speak to this before? Did I miss one? I did miss one. I'm sorry. I missed the Western Transit Way. I missed the City of Alexandria. Sorry about that, Alexandria. Sorry about that, Justin.
The appropriation. We can just hold on to the money.
About that, Justin.
Good thing they have a council now.
There's our payment. That's right. Call it even.
Justin, would you like to make a motion, Mayor?
Madam Chair, I move the authority cancellation of the FY 2021 $2.2 million appropriation for the City of Alexandria Western Transitway Northern Segment project, reclassifying the funds in the Regional Revenue Fund from appropriated to restricted.
All right, motion has been made. So, second on the motion.
Second, Madam Chair.
Second, Ms. Crystal. Discussion on the motion, Mr. Wilson.
No discussion. I think the memo fully lays out the rationale for switching this money around to a different year. So thank you.
It's pretty clear, pretty clear. Would anyone else like to discuss the motion? Hearing none. Is anyone opposed to this motion? Wonderful. This motion will pass unanimously. All right, and their last item was the adoption of resolution 2005 smart scale application endorsement. Ms. Beck.
Thank you, Chair Randall. So what we have before you is the adoption of this resolution for requested resolution of support for 18 projects that require MBTA endorsement for the fourth round of Smart Scale. That while the deadline for Smart Scale applications for this fourth round was August 17th, the deadline for submitting resolutions of support is October 30th. Legally, an MBTA resolution of support is needed for applications from transit agencies and localities that address and identify V-Trans need on a corridor of statewide significance. In your packet, you will see the list of projects, and the ones that are highlighted in yellow are those that MBTA specifically, or that require specifically an endorsement from MBTA. However, we include all of the projects that we're hearing from Northern Virginia that will be submitted for this fourth round of funding for Smart Scale. So again, projects in yellow are those that require MBTA endorsement. And this endorsement of these applications is consistent with a charge in the authority's enabling legislation stating that the authority recommends to the Commonwealth Transportation Board priority regional transportation projects for receipt of federal and state funds. So I'm actually going to go down the list to see if anyone does have questions that I make because it's pretty important. So I will start.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm going to go down the item because this is a pretty important item. And so I'm going to go down the item and ask if anyone has questions before I make the motion. So I will first go to Chairman McKay. Do you have any questions on this item?
Questions. Thank you.
Okay. Chair Wheeler. I'm sorry, Board Member. No, Chair Wheeler.
I'll answer it anyway. Yeah, no, I have no questions. Thank you very much.
All right, Board Member Crystal.
No questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson.
Sorry, I couldn't get my mute button. No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member Snyder.
No questions. Thank you.
Mayor Rischel.
No comments or questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mayor Meyer.
No questions. Thank you.
So, Senator Boysko, I'm going to come back to you so you can stop and pull yourself together if you do want to ask a question. I'll go to Delegate Watts. Do you have any questions, Delegate Watts?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Rome.
No questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Hines.
Madam Chairman, because these projects all come to the CTB, it's my practice to typically abstain on this vote. So I just want to let you know that.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for letting me know that. Mr. Wood. Mayor Wood. Derek, we can't hear you. Yeah, we think you're talking. We don't know, Derek, because we can't hear you. So I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna come back to you, Mr. Wood. Ms. Krovo, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Ms. Mitchell.
No questions.
Mr. Wood.
No questions.
There you go. And I'm going to. Has Jennifer, Senator Boysko sent you anything?
I'm actually here, and I'm on the. I'm sitting.
Hi.
That's right.
How are you?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Well, you drove all the way home and everything. Nice to actually see you. And I have no questions either. I understand that we will have one person, Ms. Krover, will abstain. Is there anyone who is opposed to this item? Seeing none, that motion will pass 1301 with no one against, but one person who will abstain. Okay.
Just for the record, Madam Chair, it's Mary Hines who abstained. Not
I'm sorry,
Tom.
Mary Hines abstained. I'm sorry, Ms. Hines. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mary Hines abstains. It's 1301 with Ms. Hines abstaining. Yes. The second was Mayor Katie Crystal. Couldn't remember what it was. And so those are all the action items for this evening. And now we have discussion items. And the first discussion item up would be the General Assembly special session that we've all been watching from afar. I will say Delegate Rome and Delegate Watts, God bless you both, because oh my gosh, I've never seen such a heavy lift that has to happen in such a short amount of time, and we do appreciate that. Senator Boysko, thank you very much. These things have been tough subjects, and we know that many of them will see them again in January probably, but you all are doing, I mean, and if there is a crossover date, that hasn't even happened yet. We don't even know when that's going to happen. So thank you to the three of you, and I will go to Ms. Baynard from McGuire Woods, who is our person to talk to about the special assembly session as it has been going so far. Tracy, you're there?
I am here. You guys can hear me, right?
Hear you just fine.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chairman Randall, members. I'm going to quickly give you an update. Yes, it's been a very busy, short special session. They're in week 3. I'm happy to say that transportation-wise, they haven't given us really anything to be unhappy about. There was a bill that, as reported earlier, had been introduced and inadvertently could have caused a significant problem, not just for regional transportation funding, but for local governments in general, because it had the potential to remove imposition of the transportation transient occupancy tax. But the patron, Senator Locke from Hampton, realized that she was inadvertently messing around with that area, and so she pulled that bill. So on the good thing, anything bad that can happen to us no longer exists. Major positives that are moving forward is through the leadership of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. There is budget language that has been proposed on the House side that would allow NVTA, NVTC, CTB, and VRE to hold our required joint public hearing remotely during a pandemic. It will be, Delegate Rep. Sullivan introduced it, and we're very sure that the appropriations will keep that in the House budget. This afternoon, or this morning, Ms. Bachman and I had a chance to share that amendment or remind Deputy Secretary Donahue that was there. He's like, yeah, it's a great idea. And so hopefully we'll also have the administration's backing. The other positive thing that's going on is the VDOT, or essentially the Transportation Secretariat, but primarily VDOT and DRPT through the governor's amendments are seeking cash management flexibility in this time of, as you can well imagine, a significant reduction in transportation revenue due to the pandemic and our current state of the economy. And the budget amendments that have been put forth are really a cash management issue. We're not hearing any concerns being expressed from local government. The liaisons and myself have been talking every week of the special session. Folks are checking on, but they're comfortable with it. We're not hearing any concerns from General Assembly members. Again, Ms. Bachman and I talked with the two deputy secretaries, Nick Donahue and John Lawson, this morning, particularly about the revenue sharing program and what's being proposed for that. And they were able to answer all of our questions. And again, the concept is essentially recognizing that while there's been money appropriated for a number of projects and revenue sharing, not all of that money is scheduled to be spent in FY21 and 22 or FY23. And so that funding will be used to maintain current FY20 funding levels keep projects moving forward. The administration's perspective is they don't want to stop or slow down currently funded projects. Want to keep them moving forward. They want to keep the focus on implementing the rail transformation project. And they also want to make sure that they have funding available to meet the PREA match from the state. Cross your fingers, the feds will do the right thing and reauthorize PREA soon enough. So as Ms. Bachman and I were talking with them, we were sharing that we weren't getting a lot of questions. Ms. Bachman had shared this language with the RJAC, and your localities have all been checking on their projects, but as of now, we're seeing no big challenge with that. It's fairly, our assumption or agreement is that it's normal for the state to try to focus on keeping existing projects moving forward. And if this can accomplish that, that's a good thing. So I'm going to stop there to see if anybody has any questions.
So, Tracy, what I'm going to do is because when I go to everybody else for questions, I actually want people to maybe chime in on what I'm about to say. I don't normally speak first when I'm chairing a board meeting. I usually, in fact, speak last, but I want just to hear anybody else's thoughts. What we know for a fact is that Metro has been during the pandemic operating at about 85% of their normal operations, and that they have been losing about a little over $2 million a day. We know that Metro is almost, for lack of a better way to say it, out of money, and they're looking possibly to do layoffs. When did when was that? Okay, so 2018, when Metro in 2018, when MBTA donated some of our money to Metro, at the time that happened, I pushed really hard to have some protective language in the General Assembly that said that it couldn't happen again, knowing that at any time protective language is only as good as as the moment, and it can be changed. I still wanted it to be harder to take money again from MBTA. There is no way MBTA can sustain Metro when they're losing this amount of money. It is impossible. In fact, it's not just Metro that's losing money. All mass transit around the country, in New York, in Boston, are all not doing well. And quite frankly, it will probably take a some congressional moves to shore up our mass transit in for some of our very large transit systems. My fear is until that happens, and I'm not sure when that will happen, there may be a willingness for the General Assembly to look at MBTA for a second time and say, until we get money back in, maybe MBTA can do this again. I started before this happened the first time. I started talking about this literally 6 months out, and hoping that it wouldn't happen, and then it did. So I'm not hearing that's happening. No one's told me that's going to happen, that they're going to look at MBTA again. But my concern was and is, once something happens one time, it's easier to come back to that same trough and do it again. And MBTA cannot be, it should not be, a funding source, either long-term or short-term, for Metro. We can't sustain that, and it is not how it should happen. It is the reason, I think it was Mr. Snyder and I last year talked so vehemently about having more federal funds be appropriated for Metro, because Metro moves the federal government workforce. And so, again, I haven't heard anything yet, and I haven't been told of anything, but I wanted just to raise it because we do know that that Metros, will be, could be literally just out of money by the end of the year. That is not a secret, and we don't know what that looks like in the short term, or what might happen for a short term holdover until Congress might act. And so I want to put that out there. So as people are Well, first of all, Tracy, is there any response to that? And then I will go to everybody else for comments.
Madam Chair, no response. Like you, I have not heard that. Certainly, myself and your liaisons look at many things coming out of the General Assembly or the administration or however it might come, just making sure that we're able to keep the authority doing the job that it was meant to do, and we are not being hamstrung by anything. So point taken, and we will continue to keep our ears to the ground and listen to that. But that I have not heard anything either. So
we didn't hear anything in advance really the first time either we didn't hear anything until we did. And then we did, it was pretty much a fait accompli. So, all right.
Madam Chair.
I was going to go down the line anyway. Just give me a second, Katie, because just give me 1 second. I was going to go down the line. Jeff, Ms. McKay, do you have any comments?
I do. I would concur with everything you said and what our concern is. And, as you mentioned, all transit systems are suffering, and we know in Virginia that we are where the transit is. And so our local governments, not only can NVTA not be looked upon as a bailout, but neither can our local governments, as we're going to be busy bailing out our own systems because of the impact of COVID. And I would say that, it's especially hard if we were asked for additional funding at a time where we know we're going to have service reductions. I mean, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around the proposed delay of the opening of the Silver Line, where a lot of folks in our private sector have made substantial investments into the Silver Line with the assumption that it was opening by a date certain. That now is being pushed back again, and I understand why that's the case. But I think not only do we have to protect the authorities' money, but we in Virginia also have to make sure that our Virginia board members are making certain that the pain of this pandemic is felt evenly across the region. So far, a major cost saver that I've heard of is delaying the Silver Line. I haven't heard about a whole bunch of cost-saving maneuvers that are being made across the region. And so this is not just a protect NVTA money moment, but it's also one for us to make sure that Virginia's interests are represented well on the Metro board. I know we have good representatives there, but we need to make sure that this pain is felt evenly. I would also encourage our localities to be weighing in with DRPT about what our own revenue situations are looking like for our own transit services, to reinforce this idea that we're going to be busy bailing them out. DRPT has pretty much told us that they really don't have any revenue to support all the revenue losses that our own transit services are enduring in our localities. And so this is a big issue. I'm glad you brought it up. I think in the near term, we have to make sure we get through this special session and next session, avoiding any raids on NVTA money for Metro. And I think you're right. I mean, ultimately, there's going to have to be a federal bill to deal with this situation, not just because of the federal government employees' ridership numbers, but also because this is going to be a transit issue in major cities and jurisdictions across the country. And without a federal partner, this hole is too deep. Your number is right. $2 million a day on weekday ridership. And you can imagine how that's compounded really since back in March. The last thing I'll say is if the pandemic ended tomorrow, we wouldn't be out from the some figure lower than 2 million a day, but still losing money every single day for a prolonged period of time, because unfortunately, falsely, people have said that riding transit is a dangerous activity. And so we've got our work cut out to get ridership up and moving again, even after this pandemic. That doesn't happen in a day or two. That's going to be a long-term process to get those ridership numbers up, especially when you're cutting service and expecting more riders to come in. And so I appreciate you bringing it up, and I look forward to working with the authority and our partners to vehemently defend the NVTA money that we have now and make sure we're not seen as an ATM. And frankly, I wish I could say it in different ways, but I think after what we went through last time, and with the help of a lot of our General Assembly members who are here now, we got a good chunk of that back, but we can't have that happen again. That's for certain.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McKay. I agree. Chair Wheeler.
Not to belabor the point, but I think it is more of a federal issue. I mean, they even recognize that with the funds that we got, CARES Act funding for our regional transportation systems in the first go round. We've already gotten federal money for that, and it's got to be across the United States. And to think that we could, as a state or as a region, bail out all of our transit systems, I think is unrealistic.
Ms. Crystal?
Thank you so much. And actually, I think Chair Wheeler put the point well that I wanted to suggest. I know that sometimes there's a little bit of antipathy towards WMATA from this body. And I just wanted to suggest as much that without a federal relief bill, we're going to cease to have a system in this region. There is no amount that can be bailed out by rating NVTA sources of funds. And in fact, I know that Metro the board had a very difficult conversation today to be introduced to some of the cuts that the general manager has proposed. And to Chairman McKay's point, I can tell you that Michael Goldman from Maryland absolutely feels the pain right now with some of those red line turnback proposals. So those cuts are going to be really challenging for our entire region as we discuss them over the next month. But I do think it's a credit to the general manager and a recognition that DC, Maryland, and Virginia are all in the same spot, which is that we cannot afford to put more in right now. And so I think that you'll see that in the adjustments to fiscal 21 and probably cast a shadow over the fiscal 22 discussions at WMATA, which is a recognition that there cannot be a going back to the jurisdictions for more money.
Yep. And that's why I said that it wouldn't be the final solution for bailing out WMATA. But I don't want it to even be an interim solution. That's kind of
and I think that's a fair point, right? I mean, right now we're very deep in the weeds. And again, I should note, I think I belabor this every time we speak, but I'm speaking from my NVTC hat, as you all know, I chair the commission, which has oversight, such as it is for Virginia and Northern Virginia into WMATA. But I think that's right. And I think the fiscal 21, we feel confident that they're going to be solving this through cuts. But you're right, in fiscal 22, there may be a conversation. And I think that's fair to keep an eye out, particularly with the upcoming General Assembly session.
Thank you, ma'am. Mayor Wilson.
I can't say it any more eloquently than my colleagues. I think this demands a federal solution, not just for WMATA, but for our local transit systems as well. And so we have a lot of work to do on our own to deal with the financial challenges. And so the two levels of government that have to balance their budget cannot be looked to solve this problem.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, sir. Councilman Snyder.
Sure. Well, thanks a lot. So WMATA is our local bus system for the city of Falls Church. So we have a lot of interest in maintaining Metro. I think Metro is going to have to recognize that the service has to be right-sized for the riders that we're getting right now. That would be point number one. Point number two, we've got to make a much better case for the safety of transit systems. I think it's there factually, but it's not been effectively communicated. And I know this came up at NVTC as well. The third issue is I fully support looking to the federal government, but I fear that at least in the short term, that's not going to happen, at least until November, or rather January. And so I think we have to have a contingency plan. Metro is too important. We simply can't let it fail. But it's not right that we get into this idea that we rob from one transportation pot in order to pay the other one. That doesn't work either. And we know we have experience at that. I don't have any answers at this point, but it's going to be very tough. It already is tough. It's going to get worse before it gets better. All I can say about Metro, I've ridden it about 6 times since March. I used to ride it every day. Frankly, we're going to have to go for long headways. It's just a reality, whether we like it or not, because the riders aren't there. Frankly, it's really depressing to go down in those stations that used to be filled, and they're practically ghost towns now. And we have to recognize that cost. On the other hand, with Metro, we have to recognize that bus is perhaps even more important than it once was for essential workers, and the flexibility that bus transportation has. We're going to need to shift that and preserve the rail system, recognize that the riders don't support the kind of vigorous schedule that we once had with that, and then look at what we can do collectively to improve our bus systems in the interim. Those are all the points that I have to make. No single solution to this. None of them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mayor Rischel?
Thank you. I agree with Madam Chair that once a precedent is set, it can very well happen again, and it can happen easily. I continue to be concerned that there are folks out there who are salivating at the amount of revenue that comes into and is programmed by the MBTA. And yes, it could surprise us and come up at any time. I sort of look at this as like we're raising teenagers, everything's fine till it's not fine. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer?
I agree with most of this, all of the sentiments that have been expressed. I was a graduate student in Washington, D.C. when the first segments of the metro system were under construction. So you can figure out how old I am. But when you look at the arc of history, and I think we really need to look at this in terms of decades and not just the tyranny of the moment, which is where we are right now. Metro, the investments that have been made over the last 50 years are well in excess, have a current value well in excess of over $1 trillion. And Metro will be here in 5 years, in 10 years. It will play a critical role for the next generation in 2030, 2040. And it's counterintuitive, but this is the time when we should be making more investments into the capital side of it, and improving safety, and charting a course, affirming the role of Metro, and charting a course for the next few years, and without apology. And we need to be bullish on the Metro system, both rail and bus, because I think that is really the key for how we're going to operate as a region in the next generation. And I do believe that this transportation system will play a critical role in finally helping this nation address the issues of justice and equity for persons who are of lower income status, so that we can bring about a more level playing field with respect to employment and housing and other issues. So the big picture is that Metro is a key part of the future of this entire region. And I just think we need to stand firm and tell the story and put it in its proper context. But I do agree with all the other comments that have been made. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm actually going to skip over the state officials right now. I actually come to them last. I'm going to come to Delegate Watts very last for obvious reasons. And I will go to Ms. Hines right now.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Honestly, it's hard to add anything after those many eloquent statements. And I do agree that, Metro is the backbone of our region. Keeping it functioning in these very difficult times is critical. But I also agree 100% that we need to look to the feds for the funding to fill these gaps. That is, without that, transit systems across the country will all fail. It's not just about our region. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wood?
Yeah, I definitely want to attach myself to the comments, especially I want to add to what Chairman McKay was saying about the fear of getting people to get back onto to public transportation. I don't know if most of you have been seeing, but as you even drive by these car dealerships, a lot of the used car dealerships are empty now. And so I think I saw a report on the news yesterday or the day before, but there's a shortage of cars in inventory because everybody now is actually buying cars, and we're getting more people that's getting back on the roads right now, which is why we got to continue to keep our funding source in place to be able to do that. So if you look at the lens from how many people now who haven't driven before are now actually purchasing cars, and how many more cars are in the households, we're looking when this to be over for a lot more vehicles to be back on the road than was before. And I started noticing dealerships being empty, and I started to question what was going on. And they say that they're buying more cars now. Their sales are actually up, but the inventory is now down because everybody is buying vehicles because they don't want to ride public transportation.
Wow.
So that's something we got to keep in mind at the same time when you look at that. How many cars are being purchased during this time? Because that's how many more vehicles we're going to have on the road. So that's kind of the lens and the perspective I wanted to bring to the conversation as well, to all the other comments that was already stated. I don't need to restate none of that.
That was interesting. Thank you. Ms. Crivel.
I just too want to say the concern is the number of cars out there, and just the continued concern. Our interstates right now are down about 10 or 15%, and that is with most kids not back at school, federal government teleworking, and that all adds up to, if that turns around and we begin to have kids going back to school and the federal government back to work, we may be in a much worse off position than we are right now. We're a multimodal region. It's important that we're multimodal, and we're all, working to solve the same problems. But, I have no further comments.
Thank you. Ms. Mitchell?
No further comments regarding the NVTA issue or supporting the need for federal funding to help bail out and support some of our transit systems. I do just want to circle back, though, on the budget amendments that Tracy mentioned and reemphasize how important those are in order for us to be able to maintain our key priorities. And on the transit side, the budget amendments for DRPT would essentially allow us to shift funds from our statewide transit capital fund and also a new program called the Ridership Incentive Program that was created last year in order to meet our commitments to NVTC, and that includes all the jurisdictions here, most of the jurisdictions here, and also to be able to maintain our statewide transit operating funds. And those are funds that the local transit systems in Northern Virginia depend on very much as well in order to keep operations going for the full year. If we don't have these budget amendments, we will not be able to meet our commitments in those areas. And so I do just want to emphasize for everybody here how important those are going to be for all of the jurisdictions for FY21. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. Delegate Rome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few comments for here. The first of which is the House of Delegates so far, by the way, for special session, just to give you all an update, we have now passed 38 House bills through the House of Delegates. The State Senate is just beginning to consider some of them as we are just beginning to deal with some of the Senate bills. So in a weird way, there's kind of a little bit of crossover going right now, but it hasn't gotten into its full flooding the gates sort of way yet, but that's coming. And we've also passed a number of resolutions and other such items. Obviously, the big work that is still left for special session is going to be dealing with the budget. And when that comes up, I suspect that will come up next week. But at the same time, we adjourned without a definitive date for when we are going to come back. So that basically means when it's ready, it's ready. And then we will come back and the Speaker of the House will let us know when that's going to be. So that's going to be the special session update. Regarding NVTA funding more broadly, and in 2021, the commitment I will make to every member of this board and to my fellow NVTA members from the General Assembly who are on this call is that there's not a chance in hell we are going to give up more NVTA money for anything else. Because what happened in 2018, as I have criticized on numerous occasions, Madam Chair, was so wildly not just unacceptable, but short-sighted, foolhardy, an ideological vote driven by nothing other than wanting purity as opposed to good governance. It was one of the absolute worst votes in terms of killing the governor's amendment to that bill that I could have just possibly imagined. It was absolutely infuriating. That said, Metro has dedicated funding from the Commonwealth now. That was the entire point of the fight. And if the federal government can't meet its obligations, well, then you have to unseat the people who are in charge of those decisions, and you need to put new people in there to make those decisions. It's that simple. We can't fix stupid, but we can unseat stupid. And the next part that I want to mention on here as well is that we have to look at how telework is affecting the average commuter right now. We have to look at the future of mass transit and how it affects our entire region beyond just day-to-day commutes. For example, as I know, Chair Randall, as I know you are very well familiar, the future of Dulles is intricately tied with the expansion of Metro right now. And so when we're talking about our major transportation hubs for other forms, we're talking also about, not just that one part of WMATA, but we're also talking about, our ability to expand operations at Dulles. We want to see a thriving Dulles International Airport. That's obviously important. My mom worked near there for 40 years dealing with customs for them. So, even I have sentimental attachment for it. And the next part on this is if we ever want to have an expansion of the Blue Line down to Prince William, which so many people have, pushed for. If we want to have an expansion of the Orange Line out to Centerville, as, Representative Connolly's talked about before, if we want to have all these nice things, then not only does Metro need its own dedicated funding from the federal government that's sustainable, but what it also needs is management that isn't constantly giving Metro a black eye to begin with. I have to quote what happened, what was reported in the Washington Post this week, where we were talking about, I'll just read it straight from it. It said, a commission audit of Metro's Rail Operations Center described a, quote, toxic workplace, end of quote, where employees are bullied, racially and sexually harassed, and told by managers to ignore authorities and operating procedures. Then Congressman Connolly said as follows, active defiance of a congressionally mandated safety commission is a firing offense, pure and simple, because it puts the ridership at risk. It further damages public confidence in the safety and reliability of the system, and it jeopardizes Metro's support on the Hill. Not only on the Hill, I would add, but in Richmond and our localities that have to all have funding agreements that go along with this. It is so vitally important that the people who run Metro get this right. Everyone has to do their part and be professionals on the job and in no way tolerate discrimination, harassment, or anything like that. Metro has had so many self-inflicted injuries and then other injuries that are not self-inflicted, things that have just been gone horribly awry. Bottom line is Metro has to succeed. We cannot have a system where we do not have a mass transit system like a rail system for the nation's capital and the surrounding region. We can't have that. We also cannot have cost overruns. We can't have mismanagement. We can't have that either. We need complete system reform here, and we need to give confidence to our taxpayers and to everyone else that as we put money into Metro, it's well spent and that we are getting a good return on our investment in the first place. So with that, I will make sure, and I know my colleagues from the General Assembly on this call as well, will also make sure that we wholeheartedly protect the integrity of our NBTA funding, and that if Metro needs money, it's going to have to come from a separate source away from the NBTA. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Delegate Rome. Ms. Boysko.
Thank you very much. Your message is heard loud and clear. There's not a lot more that I can say, I think, after Delegate Rome's very passionate comments. I agree with you that this should be a federal funding source. We are going through unprecedented times in this country on just a whole host of economic issues. The Metro is one of the economic drivers for Virginia. I agree with everyone that we've got to be successful with it, but not at the expense of the NVTA funding. I serve on the Transportation Committee. I can tell you that I've not heard a peep about any sort of plan to dip in yet, and I'll certainly keep my ears open and use my voice if and when it's necessary, and just appreciate everybody's candid and thoughtful remarks. But we're going to work together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Boysko. And Delegate Watts.
Thank you, Chairman Randall. Throughout all this, I've been wondering how candid I'm actually going to be as I speak. So let me start by saying, and I don't know how else to not be candid. We've got an election coming up, and that election will make a huge difference on the whole issue of climate change, all the fires that we are seeing in California, and the energy behind a financial commitment in many, many different ways to dealing with the environmental degradation that we are going through. Metro fits right into the climate change issue. If we don't turn the corner from the last 4 years of changing regulation after regulation, then transit absolutely won't have any place at the table. And so that's my absolutely most pessimistic view of the funding stream. If the election turns out differently and we go back on track to being concerned about climate change, then there's only just a little bit more water in the glass that's still very much more than half full. And that is nationwide, you are not going to get a commitment to Metro because the federal government is a major employer of this area. Now I go back to one of the anomalies of our political system. The Senate, US Senate, and only the US Senate is the only body that is not based on population. So when you're talking about money for infrastructure, with all that's going into that, you will not get a bill out of Congress, out of the Senate in particular, that funds transit without a lot of money going into infrastructure throughout the nation, so that we, again, will not have I don't see a special call that we will have for Metro coming out of congressional funding. Having said that, now turning to the state, my experience, let me start again with a point in time. 2018, the majority in the Senate, in the House, and almost likewise in the Senate, there wasn't the leverage, did not represent the core city areas, core urban areas of Virginia. That has changed. And not only has that changed as far as committee leadership and committee voting, proportional voting, but it's also another change that occurred this session was we now have not only Hampton Roads, but also Richmond with a transportation authority that is comparable to NVTA as far as what at least the image is of why this is needed for each one of these now 3 key urban areas. Therefore, the votes coming out of those key 3 urban areas and the understanding of the importance of the NVTA role in regional transportation is a battle that will be totally different from what we had in 2018, where there was no appreciation for that. Having said that, I certainly see, though, that a component of the battle to hold back any commitment out of NVTA, which I totally agree with Delegate Rome, and I'm going to digress on that in just a second. We still have the problem of, as some of the comments have made, we'll be throwing Metro under the bus, saying until Metro gets its act together, And that's the kind of image that is the outstate image. Why should we fund Metro? So you have two layers, not out of NVTA, and also then why are we going forward? So that then puts it right back in congressional action. And I don't know how all those dynamics are going to go play, but they are all absolutely in play. We are, thank God, the digression I want to do for just a moment. Fortunately, I was at the table in the conferees report on the transportation bill that we passed in the 2020 session. And first of all, let me say, thank God for the 2020 bill, that we will raise our gasoline tax rate 5 cents as we did July 1, and no one even noticed. Haven't heard a single thing about it. Headlines don't have room for it. And then we will do it another 5 cents next July and still be below the national average. And then finally, I think we've got it right, because from there on, it'll increase by inflation. So for the first time and maybe forever, we have a gasoline tax, even though it's on a ever decreasing amount of sales, that is so much better off than as chairman of House Finance Committee, which does all the tax bills, have been paying very close attention to what's been happening in states nationwide. And many states are looking first to their gas tax. And at least we have that one under our belt, and it won't be in the way of the essential work that has to be done on everything else. Again, having said that, I also, in fighting to get more comparable, I wish I was absolutely successful in having exactly the same taxing power for counties as cities have. I did have several meetings with the Secretary of Finance and with the governor. And I really think that, compared at least to 2008, when the first reaction of the state was to grab money from the localities and not fund at a certain level and say that we're going to level fund other pots of money, that I do not see that same sort of action this time. So that's both for NVTA as well as for mayors and chairs. I think there's a greater understanding of how the many elements of the COVID economy are affecting our tax revenues differently. And with that, I think that there's a more informed dialogue. I think a more productive dialogue than we had in 2008, not to mention in 2018. Again, I think that there's a better recognition of the reality of trying to govern localities as well as the state. And our bailout is not to reduce money to localities.
Okay.
I have two other quick things I want to get in because I think they're relevant. In our briefing at the last meeting, it was mentioned that the expectation was that remote work would grow 10-15%. I would point out that the chart that came out just last week, and I don't know the source of it, but it was for this area, that the growth in remote work for both Maryland and Virginia only grew by about 5%. And hearing, again, looking very much at tax sources, I've heard several major employers talk about, Apple being one of them, that remote work is not that advantageous for the corporate mission. And so I don't think you're going to see the same kind of embracing of everything being done remotely as we thought in the heart of 2 months ago when we were first looking at that. I think you will see more people coming back into the workplace because it is a better way to do business than we had originally thought it was. And that will make a difference on this pattern of revenue as well. I guess I will stop there, but there's so many circles within circles. I know from my own point of view that as we've gotten through and as we are getting through cut after cut after cut in what had been such a good budget, that with that, we've got to be looking at revenues, because right now, both the state and the localities are being bucked up by federal funding that isn't going to be there, by rainy day funds that can't last forever. And we are going to have to look at additional revenue. And I think that all of that also plays into your initial question, Chairman Randall, about what happens with the lack of funding that Metro is staring at.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Watson. Like I said, I just want to put it out there because we've been down this road before, and it happened all of a sudden when it happened. And so I appreciate all of you talking about it, and I appreciate our state authority members just remaining aware of it.
Chairman Randall, I'm sorry, but I really want to make one other comment that I had intended to make. I think that the Secretary of Transportation and Deputy Secretary have a much better understanding of what happened to NVTA in 2018 than they had. And I know that that question went on several times in the 2020 session as we looked at what they had proposed and what I was trying to get that much more of. In the conference committee, there were senators from elsewhere in the state who were asking eyeball to eyeball, is this real? Did you really get shortchanged? So I think we are at a better level of understanding of what happened to NVTA, as well as how unacceptable it would be to NVTA's bond rating if it were ever to happen again.
Yeah, well, thank you. And it could not have said it better. It would be completely unacceptable. All right, we're going to go to Ms. Backman to give an executive director report. Do you have anything for us tonight?
Thank you, Chair Randall. I will be very brief. I just wanted to note that the authority, we had our first socially distanced groundbreaking. Everyone wore masks, but it was for the W&O&D trail enhancement in the city of Falls Church. So the authority joined the city and Nova Parks to celebrate the construction of a nearly 1.5 mile long segment on that trail. And everything else is in my report.
Madam Chair. Hi, Madam Chair, Dave Snyder. I just want to thank the authority in general and the staff. You know, as I listen to the discussion, I think the multimodal approach that NVTA has taken is absolutely right and will serve us well in the future. There are really three ultimate objectives, it seems to me. Rebuilding our economy, providing better for equity, but also preserving the environment. And I think the W&O&D Trail project in particular does that. And I think that as our prior discussion indicated, we've got to keep those three objectives first and foremost and have those drive our decisions. So thank you very much.
Good friend Chairman Noe, because it's time for, this is where I'm different than my very good friend Chairman Noe. It's time for chair's comments, and I don't have any. So all that I would say during the meeting pretty much. And so I don't have any comments. So If we are otherwise finished, if no one else has anything, Ms. Backman, you're good? Okay. Oh, that's right. We have a closed session. Mr. Parrish, before we go to closed session, do you have anything? Okay.
Nothing, ma'am.
We have a discussion that we do have to have about Ramada, but we have to have it in closed session. So, how does this work for closed session for us? We just all stay on? Okay, we stop the live. So we stay on. Dab will stop the live screen. We'll stop the live screen, and then I read us in the closed session, and then she stops the live screen. Is that right? Live stream. Is that correct?
Make the motion to go into closed session.
Yes. Okay.
First, yes.
All right. Okay. I move the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority convene a closed meeting as authorized by Virginia Code Sections 2.2-3711.A.7 and 8 for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel concerning potential litigation concerning the terms and conditions of standard project agreements, SPAs 996-14-034-109 and SPA 996-80821 with Ramada for 8-car train traction power upgrades and the statutory requirements of Chapter 25 of Title 33.2 of the Code of Virginia governing the MBTA's legal authority to provide MBTA funding for capital projects. That is the motion. Is there a second on the motion?
Second, Chair Randall from
Do I
Delegate
have a
Rome.
second? Thank you, Delegate Rome. Appreciate that. I think everyone's gone to sleep on me. Thank you for staying awake with me. Discussion on the motion? Good. Seeing none, everyone just hold on for a second. I'm sorry, discussion on motion. Is anyone against the motion? All right, that motion will pass 13-0 unanimously. Everyone stay on. They're going to stop the live stream and tell us when they have stopped the live stream, and at that time we will be in closed session. So everyone just hold on while they stop the live stream.